Okay, everyone, Monday morning, and I'm calling this the start of the year. I always think when it's kind of a bit awkward when you're still in the festive spirit. Then you get to your first Monday of the year and you feel as if you're finally back into a routine. Maybe that's just me, Tony. I don't know, but it feels like we're kind of back into the routine, the swing of things now. How are you?
I'm very well, sir. How are you? All good.
Yeah, it's not often I'm asked that. So thanks, first of all, for asking that. Second of all, I am not bad. Bit frustrated with Celtic TV this morning, not going to lie. I kind of woke up and was hoping to uh, see the game as live, avoid my phone, etc., and watch it when I woke up. And it turned out that due to the power outage at Celtic Park yesterday, Celtic TV had lost the recording, basically wouldn't be putting it up. So found that a bit frustrating. And there's not really any other way to see the game live that I'm aware of. If anyone knows any, please fire it below because I quite like to watch the game. But yeah, that was the start to the day. So a little bit frustrated with that, Tony. But then found out that the team had won, which was great. Found out that our rivals had dropped points, which is even better. And also found out that there's plenty to talk about today because we have the aforementioned power cut and we also have some very interesting comments from the manager after the game.
Yes. We'll start with the positives, eh? 13 points clear. The rivals drop points against Celtic go out and win after the dreadful Rangers performance. Don't need to rake over that again. So, yeah. And then the manager has come out and had his say, Hamish, and every Celtic supporter on planet football is going to have a differing view or whatever view they have on it. He said a few choice things, but I have to say, I think he's primarily spot on, and more or less everything that he said, in my own personal opinion. And I just think, and it's clearly, I always say one of the things I always say is you need to listen to Brendan Rodgers. You really need to open your ears and your eyes and watch him when he's talking. He's calculated. He says things for a reason, and he brought up the kind of treatment of the players, and he referenced Dies and Maida against Club Bruges, talking about recycling the ball and all this kind of stuff. So it's clearly been in his mind for a while,
Yes, yes,
right? So,
yeah. You don't just bring up that
and,
example if you've not thought about it a lot.
you know what I mean? So it's clearly been in his mind. And I think the episode over the last few days, the Rangers' performance has just exacerbated that as well. Because some of the reaction to losing a game of football was bordering on hysterical. Granted, the performance wasn't great; it wasn't what he wanted from his players. I get that, but some of the stuff he read was just wild, absolutely wild.
Mm.
So, and as much as managers say, players maybe say they don't pay attention to media or whatever, they can't escape it. They're not living in a bubble, so he'll be well aware of it. So I just think this is something that's been brewing, and he's had the opportunity yesterday to vent his spleen a wee bit because of some of the reaction of the fans yesterday with the recycling of the ball stuff.
It's definitely been brewing because after Tannadice, he had a bit of a pop, didn't he? And it was kind
Yeah,
of more light-hearted and a bit easier to miss. But he made that comment about what was the phrase again? Something like going through a difficult time, not time to panic. I think
yeah,
was the phrase that he brought up himself that he'd obviously heard somewhere. And there's been a few other examples this season when he's made wee digs, and I think in the main those digs have been to the media and comments that have been made. You
yeah, yeah.
think back last season, but now you just wonder if some of them were with fans in mind as well. It's funny because when he made the comment about trust, that the fans need to trust
Yeah, yeah,
him and the management and the players. I look back because right away I thought Brendan Rodgers has said something very similar to this previously. Right when he came into the club the first time in 2016, we played Astana in the Champions League
yeah, yeah.
qualifying, and Moussa Dembele scored the late penalty. I think that was his first goal for us. And after that game, he told the support to trust the team. and he made very, very similar comments. Don't get on the team's back, and trust the team to move the ball back to find another gap. So he's made very similar comments before. So it's clearly something that he obviously feels. It wasn't like a kind of rush of blood to the head or anything like that after the game. But we can discuss whether we agree or not.
And the thing is, as well, during Angie's tenure, it was trust the process, wasn't it? That phrase, trust the process. So what's the difference between Brendan Rodgers saying the same thing? And it strikes me as being, see if Ange had a rant like that and then just tagged on mate at the end of it, people would have been like, manager's right, he's right. There's still an element within the Celtic support, I believe, that aren't having Brendan Rodgers, and the very use of the word trust has flicked their buttons as well. And I also think as well, Celtic are 13 points clear at the top. They answered a question yesterday about how they would be after a defeat to Rangers. And, this time last year, he had a wee barb about the Ross County game, didn't he? They won 1-0. Alistair Johnson deflected goal, and it wasn't a great performance. So along the line, he's been kind of like, right, it can't be, rip-roaring, free-scoring, never boring, as I like to call it, all the time. So, that's what I say. He's calculated. He says things for a reason. And, so I'm behind him on that, the sort of reaction with some of the supporters. My only bugbear about yesterday is the way sometimes they protect the football and the distribution. It can be erratic at times, and some of the passing has to be better, but that's just me. That's just what I'm seeing, but I genuinely think the kind of shirking of players and getting on their back, that's clearly been something that's been in his mind for a while. And as I say, the reference to the Dyson-Maida Club Bruges one tells me he's waited for the moment that he wanted to see that, and he picked it yesterday.
Okay, right. I guess we're starting with this then. I'm going to go through a few of his comments. A long quote. You'll be able to get it on our website. So you can definitely check that out. I'm not going to read it all out, but basically he said, I have a big respect for this group of players, especially in a day like today, because when it was 0-0 for the first 20 minutes, we'd make a backward pass and the crowd would be on to the team. That cannot happen. One, if you know about football, and two, if you can understand that when teams come here, they're going to make it really difficult. So clearly not holding back at all, saying that we don't need the support when we're 3-0, 4-0, 5-0 up. We need the support when it's 0-0. Now, I think a big part of what we heard yesterday from the manager was Thursday, and it was the fact that Thursday was a complete disaster of a performance, and it was, in the main this season, it's been scintillating stuff, and Thursday was the worst performance we've had, maybe alongside Dortmund, the two worst performances by a country mile, and the vast majority of performances have been really good. So you have to remember that, and I think Thursday's performance still deserved criticism because it was poor. But clearly, I think that's had something to do with. I think that's had a big part of yesterday. I think Brendan Rodgers is probably frustrated with how Thursday went, and he's probably frustrated with the criticism that the team have received. And I personally just think he had a bee in his bonnet yesterday. Yeah. You could tell that from the start of the press conference all the way until the end. He was asked about Nicholas Kuhn at the end and said he needs to toughen up. And I was like, God, you're really wound up today.
Yeah.
And it's been a while since we've seen him that wound up. And I agree with bits of it. I disagree with the stuff about Kieran Tierney, if I'm honest. I don't think the Celtic support were singing that song to dig out Greg Taylor. So I didn't agree with that. But there's bits I agreed with.
No, I don't think that, but I think he was just being protective of the player, wasn't he? Which you would expect any manager to do. But he showed a bit of a sensitive side yesterday, didn't he? Which which is very rarely seen. And the Kieran Tierney things, you can't control what supporters saying. They're excited at the possibility of Kieran Tierney coming back. Was it disrespectful to Greg Taylor? I don't think it was meant in any shape or form. but the manager's putting an arm around a player who, let's not pull any punches, but he gets it tight a lot, Greg Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
So that's maybe Brendan's observation, and that's fine. That's what he's saying, but I think that part of it, I'm not too sure. It might have felt awkward from where he was standing in the dugout yesterday. But the Celtic supporters are excited at the prospect of a player who they love coming back.
Yeah.
And I think most Celtic supporters, maybe not all, would appreciate the job that Greg Taylor has done for the club. He is the consummate professional and has been a wonderful servant, and time will tell whether he extends that contract or not. It's dragged on for a while. There's various things that you're reading in the media, but again, you kind of look at that and try and join the lines and connect the dots, as I always say, and make up your own mind on that kind of stuff. But I don't think it was disrespectful towards Greg Taylor. The manager's chosen to say that, but I guess he's just putting an arm around his player who might or who may not. He disappeared straight down the tunnel, I believe, yesterday. So he might have been hurting a wee bit, Greg Taylor, and I think both of them went straight down the tunnel, didn't he? So maybe had a conversation with him, and things have been said, and he's just defending his player. That's what I took from that, but no way did I think the Celtic supporters were being disrespectful to Greg Taylor.
I think there's two issues. The first thing, just singing of the Kieran Tierney song, was that, quote, a total lack of respect, as Brendan Rodgers says. For me, I disagree with that comment. I don't think it was a total lack of respect at all. I think it was a positive thing. Second point, is Greg Taylor undervalued generally by the Celtic support? That's one that will get people debating. I've got friends who don't rate Greg Taylor at all, can't wait for him to leave. I have other people, probably like me, certainly like you, Tony, who recognise that while Greg Taylor has certain limitations at the top level, he has been a really good servant for Celtic, who's always given his all. So I think that's the point that Brendan Rodgers makes defending Greg Taylor, and the point over, is Greg Taylor underappreciated? I think that's a fair point. I think he is, personally. It's just my opinion. The Kieran Tierney stuff I disagree with. The other thing I'd throw in is, and I don't know if this would be controversial, but I mean, Greg Taylor hasn't signed a new deal at this stage. So, I mean, is Greg Taylor even going to be here next year to vie with Kieran Tierney? So I wouldn't be going completely two-footed in on the Celtic support over someone who might not even want to stay at Celtic next season. That's just my thoughts on that. What about the other one, Tony? What about the quotes on the kind of groans inside the stadium when the ball was going backwards?
You learn a lot when you listen to the manager. So if the manager's telling you stuff, then fine. Your eyes are telling you maybe a different story, but it's like everything else. I think this has been building for a while, and it's reached its kind of apex after Thursday. And he's just, as I say, he's had his opportunity and platform to vent the spleen a wee bit. The fans inside the stadium yesterday, there was some slack passing, there was some recycling, as Brendan calls it, and there was groans inside the stadium. Well, I can't get away from the fact that I think these things are a bit of a storm in a teacup. Celtic are 13 points ahead. They won yesterday. It was a routine 3-0 win without breaking too much sweat. They came out and they did the job that they were asked to do. Rangers dropping points earlier in the day. Could Celtic stretch the lead at the top to 13? They did. You're not going to please all the people all the time, but some fans are just I don't know. I don't speak for the Celtic fans. I always speak for myself. But I was in the stadium yesterday as a supporter, and I was just kind of like, come on, give the players a break. I agree with the manager on that. Give the players
I do as well.
It's like, what do you want from them? It's not like, and also I put it down to every team now, with the exception of Rangers, they're no intention of playing Celtic. They don't come out to play. they just sit there and they have their banks and they say, right, break us down. It doesn't matter what level of football you're playing at. It's very, very hard when teams don't come out to play. And it leads to frustration, and you constantly recycle the ball and you probe for those opening. The first time Celtic did anything with any tempo and pace and slickness, they cut them open and Kuhn scored the first goal. That can't happen every time. It doesn't happen every move. You have to be patient. You have to understand. And also, Brendan, I thought what a telling thing he said when you were quoting him there was, if you know football or if you understand football, right?
I mean, yeah.
He's having a go at people that watch a lot of football but maybe don't understand the subtle nuances of it. You know, people can watch football but not see what's happening. And I think maybe that's what he's having a go at there. I think most of us like to think we understand the game. But a manager of Celtic Football Club understands the game a lot more than I do, and you do. And as I say, that's when he speaks it, you tend to open your ears and listen and shut that and kind of say, okay, tell me why or explain why. So I think he was, he was just being a wee bit, I don't know, I said I used the word sensitive the other day, but a few moments ago, but maybe so overly sensitive. But I guess he's getting his point across. And I think he's right on that one. You were living in an unprecedented period of success, Hamish. And the older guys will always say to guys like yourself, try living through the 90s and that kind of stuff. And you'll say, aye, yada, yada. Celtic went 6 years in the 90s without winning a trophy. And so 6 years without winning a trophy, and then there's been other lean periods before that older people can remember. So, you're just like, you've got to enjoy this. And how can going 13 points clear of your rivals suddenly become such a negative? I find that very hard to believe. We should be on here today saying 13 points clear, halfway through the season, let's go again. And yet we're talking about other side issues. And I know the manager brought them up, and I guess we have to address them. So that's fair enough. But
yeah, I mean, that's the point I was going to make, is that it's kind of the manager bringing it up that means we're discussing all this, because had he not done that, I don't think we'd be discussing the groans after 20-25 minutes. I mean, I think generally, I don't like using the word spoiled, because I think it sounds really like has real negative connotations of like a spoiled kid or something like that. But I do think generally, in terms of the definition of the word, we have been quite spoiled in recent years with the success we've had at the club, and maybe just maybe we kind of expect that a little bit too much all the time. And if there's the odd bad performance, we kind of, in general, we kind of throw our toys out the pram. Like I thought the reaction to the Dundee United draw was a bit ludicrous, to be honest, given that we just won X amount of games in a row and we went to Tannadice with injuries and dropped points. Didn't lose the game, dropped points, and there was a bit of a reaction there. So I agree with the manager there. I think the team deserved criticism. I think Brendan Rodgers deserved criticism for Thursday, because it wasn't just a defeat, it was a shockingly bad defeat. It was an awful day for us. So I do think he should maybe have kind of held fire for a bit, to be honest, maybe till he had a little bit more credit after Thursday. But the main thing I kind of want to ask you is, why do you think he's done this? And I think it is interesting to ponder, because as much as he looked frustrated after the game, we know that he does things for a reason. And he's gone into that press conference wanting to get that across. Yeah. It's not just been a split second thing. Like, he's gone in there thinking, I'm going to make this point. Maybe it's quite simply what it says in the tin. Maybe he wants the support just to show a bit more patience with the team. Maybe there's other kind of factors behind it. He wants to light a bit of a fire under the team, potentially, like the media stuff clearly did last year after Tynecastle. Yeah. I mean, that was a huge factor in last season, along with the Joe Hart stuff. So, I mean, those things will be on his mind.
I think it's the manifestation of they just come off the calendar year. He was talking about coming off the calendar year where they lost 2 games, hadn't they? And it was one of the best years in Celtic's history. And then they lost the first game of 2025, and it was as if everything had been negated with that one performance in some people's eyes. And I think he was thinking, wait a minute, I've just told you that this group of players are, and you're giving them this, you've turned on them so quickly. And they did deserve criticism for the Ibrox display. Because I look at Rangers' past few games, St Mirren took 2 off them and won the game, Motherwell took 2 off them, drew the game, Hibs took 3 off them and drew the game. Celtic couldn't muster a shot to goal at Ibrox, 1 shot to goal. That's disappointing. And that's the Scottish champions you're talking about. So that I think you do deserve criticism for that in isolation. But it doesn't negate everything that has happened up until now. And I think it was a rallying call, to say, look, come on, these guys have given their all, they've done this, cut them some slack. And I think he's right on that. He is bang on the money on that. Hamish, you can't get frustrated when you're winning 3-0. The players they're trying to break down a stubborn team. They had to do it against Motherwell. They had to do it against St Johnstone. These teams that come have no ambition, and I get why. They don't want a tanking. But conversely, Celtic can't administer tankings every time they play these teams. They have to be patient. And again, going back to that comment about if you understand football, he's really having a pop there and saying, watch what's happening here, or if you're watching, see, don't just watch and blindly. I think he's trying to educate people as well, media and journalists alike too, myself included. I'm not just saying it's for the general public, it's for everybody. Saying, if you're going to come steaming in studs high, listen to what I'm telling you. And I think he's right with that. He's absolutely spot on with that. The Kieran Tierney stuff, Greg Taylor stuff.
That's a kind of more of a kind of
issue. Yeah,
smaller issue, isn't it?
Smaller issue. The actual crux of what he said, and as you see, it's been a well-rehearsed ad-lib because he's had it in his head since Bruges.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I'm going to go through a few comments because you've all been sending them in. Certainly get people talking. Just go through a few of them. So we get Bob just coming in. Rodgers has turned the spotlight back on us immediately rather than it being on him after his complete failure last Thursday. Pete saying, don't just single out Brendan Rodgers for Thursday. Don't worry, Pete. I'm not just singling out Brendan Rodgers. I agree that the entire playing squad, the playing squad that actually played at Ibrox were all below par, with the exception possibly of Cameron Carter-Vickers. I thought I had a good game. Brendan is also entitled to protect his players, Chilpel says. Completely. That's another element of it. He was standing up for Greg Taylor, but also standing up for the rest of his players and the comment about the fans. And I think we generally as fans, we wouldn't massively mind that. We'd always want Brendan Rodgers to stand up for the players. I just think, is there another way you can do it? Can you maybe, what he's done previously, like angle it towards the media? I mean, we all love to bash the media, as much as I hate to say it. We all love to bash the media. Could he have done it that way rather than attacking the fans? I just felt he just looked really frustrated yesterday after a game we'd won 3-0. And I'll go back to the Nicholas Kuhn point at the end. I thought that was almost the kind of the weirdest thing about the whole press conference. He was asked about Kuhn, a positive question about Kuhn scoring a couple of goals, and he said, yeah, he needs to get on with it. I was like, wow. Because there was another game when Kuhn was at Leipzig. After Leipzig, he was asked about Kuhn, and he said, yes, pressing needs to be better.
Yeah,
so I almost think Kuhn might be a kind of tough love type guy.
I also think as well it's about keeping players' feet on the ground. Don't get carried away. I think Celtic have an over-reliance on Kuhn in terms of that attacking outlet. Because the ball was shunted to him at every possibility yesterday. Kept going down the right-hand side. And Johnson was always looking to find Kuhn. And teams are aware of that now. They're double teaming Kuhn. And that's understandable. He is a potent threat. So I think it's more of a kind of like, right, we know this guy's good, and Brendan just saying, yeah, but this could be better. Just a warning shot over the bow Kuhn as well. Did you say that?
Yeah.
That tough love thing? But I don't think for a minute that he doesn't appreciate and love Kuhn for what he's done and brought to the team. But it's always that kind of, yep, did well, great, but, he's not the finished article. And I don't mind that. I just think it keeps players on their toes, but I think yesterday, it really wouldn't have mattered. He was on one yesterday, wasn't he? So I don't think anybody was going to get real praise because he just wasn't in that kind of mood, was he?
Yeah, I mean, Thomas saying it was tongue in cheek. I need to watch it again. I didn't get the impression that it was tongue in cheek. I thought, he was kind of, and I'm not saying he has it in for Nicholas Kuhn. Of course, he doesn't. The point I'm making is that I think he was wound up yesterday. Thomas raised an interesting point. I mean, just a question. Will it be interesting to see the reaction Wednesday night with the fans? Well, I guarantee you one thing, Thomas. The Kieran Tierney song is going to be sung even louder on Wednesday night by the North Curve Green Brigade. Certainly, that's an absolute guarantee because they and Brendan Rodgers don't exactly see eye to eye after events in over the past recent years. In terms of the rest of the stadium, the one worry I have is that I think things are clearly going well at the moment, and we're going into a busy period. We know we've got that big Champions League game against Young Boys coming up in a few weeks. And you really want everyone to be completely united. You don't want some sort of external factor becoming a distraction like we've had in recent years. Remember last year, there was a lot of distractions in that first half of the season. And I remember the previous year or the year before that, we had like loads of stuff about the club hiring a police official in a security role. And we also had like tennis ball protests and all of that kind of thing. And that was, while necessary, probably, that was a distraction as well. So we could do without that. So I hope this is one that just kind of blows over and the team go out on Wednesday night and put in a big performance. We could really do without any more drama here on Wednesday, because you don't want that to become the main story. As much as it's the main story today and people are getting into it, you want our football to be the main story.
It's been said. We park it, we move on. He got his platform. He said it. Wednesday is a different game, different day, different challenge, but everybody should be united. I'd like to think Greg Taylor, if he plays, will get a great reception as well. I'd like to think Rangers will get a decent reception too. He said his piece. I think you just have to look forward now and just, as I say, accentuate the positives and all of this, which has been lost in the vortex of it all. Celtic are 13 points clear. The rivals dropped 2 points again. And, they increased their lead at the top. And they played well enough yesterday. They got the job done. So let's go, as you say, go again. Dundee United midweek and everybody on point again. And for the next push. As you say, we're halfway through the season now, aren't we? More or less halfway through the season, so we've got the next half to negotiate, and it's a decent, healthy lead that they've got at the top.
Yeah, Chris saying I'm sure Taylor will get plenty of applause on Wednesday when he's on the ball for the first time, and I agree, but also I don't want it to become a thing. There's no sections of the support here are undermining Greg Taylor publicly at matches. No one's booing Greg Taylor. Like, I don't want it to become like a thing where suddenly it becomes like you've got Greg Taylor and Brendan Rodgers in one corner, then you've got the Green Brigade in the other corner. The Green Brigade will be supporting Greg Taylor. That's what I mean. I don't want there to be kind of any division. We all need to be together going into Wednesday and beyond, and hopefully that's the case. Because as you say, Tony, things are good. Generally, yeah.
You see the top of the programme, how can you turn this into a negative? Yeah. We're only speaking about it because the manager brought it up, because he clearly had something to say, and and there's still a faction within the Celtic support that are maybe still are not 100% with the manager. Fine, I get that, okay. But, I mean, he's entitled to his opinion, just like we are on this. I agree with most of, or nearly everything that he said, but not all. And I think most like-minded supporters will be like that. But I say I can't speak for them. I speak for myself, and I think we're agreeing on what we thought was spot on, and we're agreeing on what we thought wasn't right, which was the kind of side issue of it all with Greg Taylor and Kieran Tierney. So I don't want this to be blown out of epic proportion because it's not that big a deal. I have to be honest. In my eyes, maybe I'm reading it wrong. I just think it's this is how you create negativity, and Celtic are cruising along nicely here. So I don't want any other narrative to come in and try, but if anything, it's taken the shine off the fact that Rangers actually dropped points yesterday, and their title, their supposed title, reignition lasted 48 hours.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you have to sort of talk about... Sorry, the dogs are... but you have to talk about the fact that Celtic are 13 points clear, and, they were playing to go 17 clear of Rangers at Ibrox on Thursday. It didn't happen. Yeah. But they're now 13 points clear, and that's a healthy lead. Somehow, by not winning at Ibrox, they've still stretched their lead in the next game. So to me, that's a win-win. And I just think all this kind of negativity swirling around Celtic, it shouldn't be there, because they are ticking along nicely, and the players are doing their bit, so.
Yeah. Yeah, as I say, I think, that was Brendan Rodgers bringing it up that has potentially created that. But yeah, as you say, we'll move on, and be interesting to see his press conference, whenever that is. That'll be tomorrow, whether he backs down or doubles down, because he will clearly be asked about it. That's going to be interesting. Right, that'll do us for today, everyone. We've managed to basically overlook the actual match yesterday, but we've got the rest of the week or certainly tomorrow to do that. Good news for me, though, because I've not actually seen the match, so it gives me another kind of day or so to possibly watch that. Yeah, you can subscribe to the Celtic Way for the best dedicated Celtic coverage. The website is celticway.co.uk. And if you /subscribe, that's where you can get involved, get transfer stuff, in-depth analysis from Tony, John, Ryan, the rest of the squad, comprehensive news, exclusive interviews, and of course, daily videos as well. So yeah, and if you fancy subscribing to the channel on YouTube, it's completely free. That would be much appreciated as well. Helps us to move things forward and find more Celtic fans like you. So that's my piece for today. Tony, thank you. Thank you, everyone. We'll catch up with you this time tomorrow.